Imagine the cold rush of water against your skin, the kind that steals your breath and whispers oblivion. That's where she stood, on the crumbling bank of the Ganges, her toes curling into the mud, the night air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth and distant temple bells. Her name was Priya, and in that moment, she wasn't just tired, she was shattered, ready to let the river swallow her whole. But what if I told you that from the depths of that despair, she emerged, not broken, but as a beacon for the lost? This is her story, one that might feel like your own quiet ache. Priya grew up in a small village in Uttar Pradesh, where the sun baked the fields golden and the monsoons turned everything to mud. Her home was a single-room hut with walls that echoed her father's drunken rages and her mother's silent tears. As a child, she dreamed of escaping through books borrowed from the school library, their pages yellowed and dog-eared, smelling of old ink and possibility. But dreams were luxuries. At 14, she was pulled from school to work in the fields, her small hands blistering under the relentless heat, harvesting rice that never filled their plates enough. Life twisted harder when she was married off at 18 to a man twice her age, his promises as empty as the barren fields in drought. The village celebrated with sweets and garlands, but for Priya, it was the start of a cage. Nights blurred into days of chores, her body aching from labor, her spirit dimming under his indifferent gaze. She bore 2 children, their tiny cries a mix of joy and burden, but the weight grew. Whispers in the village called her cursed when her husband left for the city, chasing work that never came, leaving her to scrape by on odd jobs washing clothes in the river, the same one that would later call to her. The first real fracture came when her son fell ill. Fever gripped him like a vice, his skin hot and slick under her trembling hands. She sold her wedding jewelry, the last glint of gold, to buy medicine from the local healer, but it wasn't enough. He slipped away one dawn, his breath fading like mist over the river. Priya felt the loss carve into her chest, a hollow that echoed with what-ifs. Why couldn't she save him? The village turned away, murmuring superstitions, isolating her in grief that tasted like ash. Then came the second blow. Her daughter, now her only light, ran away at 16, lured by tales of city glamour from a boy who promised stars but delivered shadows. Priya searched for weeks, her feet raw from walking dusty roads, knocking on doors that slammed shut. Letters came sporadically, stained with tears, speaking of exploitation in sweatshops, but no address to follow. The emptiness gnawed deeper, nights spent staring at the thatched ceiling, the roof leaking like her unspoken sorrows. The third challenge struck when illness claimed her own body. A persistent cough turned to blood. Tuberculosis, they said at the free clinic, hours away by bus. Treatment meant debt, borrowing from moneylenders whose smiles hid shark teeth. She worked through the pain, her lungs burning with each breath, hiding her weakness from neighbors who already pitied her. But the medicine ran out, and so did her strength. Evicted from her hut for unpaid rent, she wandered to the city, sleeping on station platforms where the air reeked of urine and forgotten dreams. Fourth, betrayal from the one friend she trusted, a woman from the village who offered shelter but sold Priya's few possessions while she slept, vanishing into the night. Alone in the bustling chaos of Delhi, Priya begged on streets lined with indifferent faces, her voice lost in the honking horns and vendor calls. Hunger became a constant companion, sharp and unrelenting, mirroring the void inside. And the fifth, the river itself, that fateful night. She had walked miles, her sorry torn and muddied, carrying nothing but the weight of failures that piled like stones in her soul. The water looked inviting, a dark mirror reflecting her fractured self. But in that plunge, something shifted. The current pulled her under, icy fingers wrapping around her limbs, lungs screaming for air. Visions flickered: her son's laughter, her daughter's smile, the village fields under sunset hues. And then, a hand. A fisherman's grip, rough and calloused, hauling her to the bank. He was an old man, his eyes kind under wrinkled brows, who had lost his own family to the same river years ago. "The water takes, but sometimes it gives back," he murmured, wrapping her in a dry blanket that smelled of fish and wood smoke. In his hut, over weak tea, he shared his story of survival, of finding purpose in pulling others from the edge. That night became her turning point. Coughing up river water, Priya felt a spark ignite, not of anger, but of clarity. Why her? Why survive when so many didn't? The old man's words echoed, purpose in pain. She didn't transform overnight. Recovery was slow, body mending in a shelter for the destitute, mind piecing together in quiet conversations with counselors who listened without judgment. Priya learned to read again, devouring books on healing, her fingers tracing words that felt like lifelines. She found her daughter, now safe in a women's home, their reunion a tangle of sobs and forgiveness, the air thick with jasmine from nearby blooms. Step by step, Priya built a new life. She started a small support group in the village, gathering women under a banyan tree, sharing stories over chai that steamed in the cool evenings. Her voice, once silenced, now wove tales of resilience, helping others navigate the darkness she knew too well. She advocated for health clinics, her petitions handwritten on scraps of paper, leading to a mobile unit that saved lives like her son's might have been. Today, she runs a non-profit, Rivers Return, rescuing those on the brink, offering counseling scented with hope and fresh bread. The moral whispers softly. In our deepest dives, we find not endings, but the strength to surface and lift others. Pain isn't a curse, it's the forge that shapes saviors. Priya's scars are her map, guiding the lost back to shore. If this story touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs one more reason to try again. 2. Seen Beseen AI image prompts. Scene 10 o'clock to 1:30. A young woman in her 30s with weary eyes and disheveled black hair, standing at the edge of a misty river at dusk, her simple sorry clinging to her in the wind, expression of profound despair and resignation. Setting is a rural Indian riverbank with swirling dark waters and distant village lights. Cinematic lighting with cool blue tones and soft fog. Atmosphere heavy with emotional weight. Pixar 3D cartoon realism. Emotional, cinematic lighting. Painterly, Ghibli inspired. Shallow depth of field. Scene to 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Child version of the woman, about 10 years old, with innocent, wide eyes and braided hair, working in golden rice fields under harsh sunlight, sweat on her brow, clothing a faded salwar kameez, setting rural village hut in background with thatched roof. Warm golden hour lighting casting long shadows, atmosphere of youthful dreams clashing with hardship. Pixar 3D cartoon realism, emotional, cinematic lighting, painterly, Ghibli inspired, shallow depth of field. Scene 3 o'clock to 4:30. Adult woman holding a sick child in her arms, tears streaming down her face, expression of helpless grief, child pale and limp. Setting dimly lit hut interior with flickering oil lamp, soft, warm light contrasting cold sorrow, atmosphere intimate and heartbreaking. Pixar 3D cartoon realism, emotional, cinematic lighting, painterly, Ghibli inspired, shallow depth of field. Scene for 4:30 to 6 o'clock. Woman submerged in turbulent river waters, eyes wide with realization, bubbles rising around her, hair floating like dark ribbons, an ethereal vision of her family in soft glow, underwater lighting with rays piercing from surface. Atmosphere transformative and surreal. Pixar 3D cartoon realism, emotional, cinematic lighting, painterly, Ghibli-inspired, shallow depth of field. Scene 5, 6 o'clock to 7:30. Woman sitting with an old fisherman in a humble hut, wrapped in a blanket, steam rising from teacups, expression shifting from broken to hopeful. Setting cozy interior with fishing nets and warm firelight, golden ambient lighting, atmosphere of quiet healing. Pixar 3D cartoon realism, emotional, cinematic lighting, painterly Ghibli-inspired, shallow depth of field. Scene 6, 7:30 to 9 o'clock. Woman leading a group of women under a large banyan tree, smiling gently, gesturing animatedly. Diverse ages, expressions of shared empathy. Setting lush village green at sunset with teapots, warm orange hues and soft shadows. Atmosphere empowering and communal. Pixar 3D cartoon realism, emotional, cinematic lighting, painterly, Ghibli-inspired, shallow depth of field. Scene 7, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Close-up of the woman's face, now radiant with purpose. A subtle smile, river in blurred background at dawn, expression of serene resolution. Soft morning light with golden flares. Atmosphere inspirational and closing. Pixar 3D cartoon realism, emotional, cinematic lighting, painterly Ghibli-inspired, shallow depth of field.